Sex addiction, porn addiction, chronic cheating, nervous system dysregulation, trauma. What do you think of when I say those words? Because in today's episode of Jillian On Love, I have a very special guest, Stefanos Sifandos. He is a relationship coach, a somatic healer, an entrepreneur, and he focuses on conscious relationships and healing trauma. He was a former sex addict, porn addict, chronic cheater, a lot of trauma that he didn't know how to process and how to work with. And today he is successfully married, he is a father, and has a very thriving career helping others overcome their hardship. And so this is a very vulnerable and honest conversation. It is the window into the mind of someone who endured a lot of pain, and pain that showed up in his romantic relationships, and how he was able to overcome, to heal, and to completely change his life. I think this is going to be one of the more riveting and interesting conversations that you've listened to in a long time. And I can't wait for you to listen, honestly. So without further ado, our conversation. Stefanos, welcome to the show.
I'm very happy to be here.
I'm very excited to speak to you. If I may, I kind of want to go right into it and deep into it. Kind of start with a bang. You have spoken in the past transparently about healing sex addiction and avoidance. My question to you is, what is sex addiction? And then the second part is, how did you heal that?
So for me personally, the compulsion around sex, around novelty and variety, around stimulating, it's firstly, it's very complex. I think it is, meaning that
I agree.
Layered. Yeah. It's not just, it's biological, it's physiological, it's based so much on my upbringing. It's how I interpreted those events, what I made them mean, how I sourced safety, how I sourced peace and reprieve in the early stages of my life through, my craving dopamine because I needed extreme pleasure. And because I was experiencing at least the perception of so much pain. And so now as a child, I wasn't having sex. In fact, I was a really late bloomer. And I didn't have sex until it was just before my 18th birthday. Comparatively, what was happening, I was seeing kids having sex in year 7 for me. They're 11 years of age, 12 years of age. And that was really shocking.
Which is frightening and shocking.
Yeah, and I'm 43, by the way. So you go back 30 plus years ago, this was happening, and it was really scary for me. And so I just want to sort of emphasize that I started very late in that sense. And it's not that I don't share this often, it hasn't been asked often, but my first experience, my first sexual encounter, like quote unquote penetrative sex or real sex, if you like, was with a prostitute. And that started to form the way I went into the world. But let me go back to your question. So I craved pleasure because the pain that I was harboring that was repressed for so long.
Was the pleasure, did you seek it in other ways too? Were you addicted to drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, alcohol, yes. Drugs, no. Performance. So I found I was quite overweight when I was young. So as I started losing weight in my mid-teens, I found that was very helpful for me. So I started focusing not so much on the aesthetics of my body, that was part of it, but it was more performance. So I became addicted, or I became very attracted to validation. And so that validation came through, let me perform in sporting events and competitions, and let me receive accolades from others. That was part of it.
We're never not searching for that in others.
Yeah. But the issue that I think most of us have is that the come from within, it's slanted too much towards let me get this validation outside of myself.
Yes, no, I understand that.
Yeah. And so there's this instability that I was feeling, and this nervousness, this anxiousness that I was feeling, that I equated to pain. And so I needed pleasure to mitigate the pain. And it came in various forms. And for me, it could have been drugs, it could have been heroin, it could have been amphetamines, it could have been a number of other things.
Yes.
But it predominantly came through sexual exploitation. It came through the pursuit of sexual novelty and variety. And that gave me the high that distracted me from not being able to look at my pain for a period of time.
Now, when you say like novelty, you had a lot of partners, is what you're saying, or you had sex with multiple different women.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. That was
and you weren't able to actually have relationships with them.
Many of them, no. Because the moment, and again, this is the complexity, right? The moment we became close and intimacy was there, it became very engulfing for me based on my upbringing, because I was very restricted by my father growing up. I was deeply enmeshed, entangled, parentified with my mother. I grew up very young, meaning that I became the emotional caretaker, relational caretaker of my family. And I'm not blaming anyone for that. I'm speaking to patterns and dynamics.
Yes, I understand that. And
which just took away from me, at least my perception of that at the time, took away freedom. And so my biggest value was freedom, but my biggest wound was freedom. And so being in an intimate relationship meant confronting more of me. It reminded me unconsciously of the relationship with my mother specifically. And so I didn't know that, but I would be pushing that away. But I could hide in the novelty, I could hide in the variety of sexual pursuit because it was so novel, right? It was so exciting. It was so surface level.
Yeah, so exactly. But also validating, I would imagine if you grew up overweight and then here you are getting all these women, it's sort of like that small overweight child in you is like, see, now I can actually get any woman I want.
Yeah, now I carry some value. Now I'm important.
Yeah, now I'm attractive. Now I'm desirable. Now I'm sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the breaking point for you?
I think it was breaking points. But if I had to pinpoint it, I was in a long-term relationship and I so cared for this woman. And yet I didn't have any mastery, discipline, control, connection, compassion to the parts of me that were creating not only sabotage, but that were just so protective. And it came in the form of, I'm in this relationship. I feel I can't be in my truth. At least that was the story I was telling myself. It was justifying my actions.
Yeah.
And anytime we would keep getting closer, because it's like an accordion, right? Like the closeness and the openness and the contraction and expansion of the relationship, I would, instead of really communicating and being in healthy conduct with each other and with her, I would just go live in the shadows. And that looked like prostitution, that looked like being with other women, casual flings, focusing, being very self-absorbed as a protective strategy.
So you were every woman's worst nightmare.
Yes, 100%. I was my own worst nightmare.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, first and foremost, yeah.
And the shame spiraling, right? And and the guilt and the confusion and the inconsistency that I was creating in this relationship. And eventually, her intuition took over and she discovered that I was cheating and I was deeply dishonest in the relationship. And that became the catalyst for a deeper transformation, because for me, that never had been unpacked before. It never come to the surface. I was always in the shadows with it. And it coming to the surface brought up a lot of old repressed stuff from my childhood. And I got to a place, but leading up to that, like 1 or 2 years leading up to that, I'd been in internal conversation with myself, but I never had the courage or the aptitude to actually make changes, but I wanted to stop the behavior but felt I couldn't. Hence why I've called it a compulsion and addiction for myself and for so many, right? Like so many of us want to stop the behavior that we know isn't serving us, but we can't get to the core of it. We feel too much shame. We don't have the support. We don't have the safety in our nervous systems, and we get stuck. And
Can I ask you a question? I don't mean to interrupt, but I think this is really important because we're kind of giving thank you for being so open and honest, by the way. Yeah. So when you would live in the shadows and cheat on her, prostitutes, all those things, would there be the regret and shame that came afterwards?
100%. And this is the inconsistency I was talking about. So I'd feel the regret and the shame, so much of it, and then I'd pour into her, right?
So what would be some of the things you would say to yourself when you were in that shame and...
I mean, the internal negative dialogue. I'm a piece of shit. I'm worth nothing. I should probably just kill myself. I can't believe I'm hurting this person. This person's so good to me. What's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right?
And then you would try to make up for it by pouring into her and the relationship. And then what would be the trigger for you that would then restart the cycle again?
It would either be her wanting more, so wanting deeper connection and deeper intimacy. That could be emotional, that could be communication, that could be practices together, that could be making a deeper level of commitment in our own lives.
Let's spend more time together. Yeah.
For sure. Quality
meet my
time
needs.
Together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That part, but then conflict. The moment there was conflict and I felt I couldn't fix it or resolve it, or I couldn't move past it quick, I equated that to too much pain in the relationship. I don't want this. I don't want to experience this again. I saw enough of this with my parents. I'm out. But I wouldn't be out like, oh, the relationship's ending. Although I would say that, hey, maybe we're not a fit for each other. We shouldn't be together. Then whatever her wounds and patterns are, they come in. No, let's stay together. Let's work this out. And while I'm saying, yeah, sure, let's work it out, I'm seeking the freedom because it felt like annihilation for me, that level of constriction. I'm seeking the freedom in my sexual exploits outside of the relationship in the shadows.
This episode is sponsored by Foria. Foria creates award-winning products to support intimate experiences across every stage of your life from menstruation to menopause. They have an amazing product. They created something called Relief Melt to provide natural internal menstrual support. So these small, easy to insert suppositories are made with cocoa butter and, get this, 100 milligrams of the highest quality of CBD to relax tension and pelvic discomfort. It's actually really genius and way long overdue. They also have a relief salve, which is a game changer for taming the tension and muscle soreness you get during your period. And let's be honest, we get that even when we don't have our period. I can read insanely glowing reviews from Foria's website all day, but you really just have to try their formula for yourself to understand. So whether you're looking for period relief or something to get you in the mood and enhance pleasure, I highly, highly recommend you check out their all-natural formulas. The good news is that Foria is offering a special deal for our listeners. Get 20% off your first order by visiting foriawellness.com/JOL or use code JOL at checkout. That's FORIA wellness.com/JOL for 20% off your first order. You'll thank me later. Okay, so there's this duality here where you're almost telling her what she wants to hear, pleasing her, because there's a part of you that doesn't want to lose her.
Correct.
But then there's another voice inside your head that's like, this is too difficult. What's the point? I'm out of here.
Correct.
I think this is so important because I think this is a game that people play with themselves in all areas of their life, not just in relationships. It's like, this is the way that we stand in our own way. We get into these stories. What's the point? This is too hard. So they quit the project that they started, or they quit the relationship, or they quit the diet, whatever it is, they quit the new healthy habit. Okay, so then you felt yourself, but there was a part of you, there was awareness inside of you because you're not a sociopath. You're a human being in pain who was aware of the fact that you were running yourself into the ground.
Yeah, and I was really hurting her, irrespective of whether she knew about my actions outside of the container
You
of the
had a conscience
relationship.
about it.
Oh, yeah, I was hurting her massively because I
Yeah.
could see the inconsistency, the let me go all in on you and the relationship, but I'd pull right back. And what I noticed was that I was doing that in every previous long-term relationship as well. It was the same pattern. And when I noticed that for the first time, and it's not like I was new to therapy or counseling or coaching or deep dive work, I would just never really allow myself to go deep enough to really unpack what was truly happening for me. But in that moment, I saw that pattern and I couldn't deny it anymore. Like I couldn't keep living like that because I realized how much pain I was in. And I realized how much of that I was bringing into everyone's life that I was becoming close with. I just couldn't
Was
do it
this like
anymore.
the rock bottom?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there
Yeah.
were various rock bottoms along the way, but
Yes.
this was the bigger rock bottom that actually propelled me to do enough inner work and make enough changes or be committed to that. I mean, for the first time in my life, I said to myself, I either change and get through this and actually be a different person. I end up in a mental asylum because it's too painful, or I commit suicide because it's too painful. But either
Mhm.
way, I'm not stopping until one of those three happen, preferably the first one.
So what did you do?
Well, I sought help because I realized that I've been trying to do this on my own and I couldn't. And so I sought help. But not only did I seek help because, as I said, I wasn't a stranger to being supported by other humans, but I actually let people in. And so I started working with shamans, with practitioners, with psychotherapists, with counselors, with spiritual people and spiritual guides, with energy healers. I went all in. I put myself into a lot. I stopped my businesses. I mean, like I really went, it isn't part of my extreme
How old were
personality.
you? Were you in your
Early,
30s?
early 30s, very
Early
early
30s.
30s.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So over a decade ago.
Uh-huh.
So I went all in. And like I said, I put myself into debt, massive debt. I was
Okay.
very fortunate that I had long, big lines of credit and I stopped working and I just went all in.
What helped and what didn't help?
I must say everything helped.
Okay.
I mean, everything I just listed then,
Helped in
and
some way.
in some way, absolutely, yeah. Because it was very, every practitioner I came into contact with, every guide I came into contact with, whether it was for long term or short term, maybe one session, one exploration, or whether it was multiple over weeks or months or years, played a really significant role because I was open in a way I'd never been open before. And I was just really blessed to meet amazing people. And again, I did a lot of inner work on my own as well. There were many days and many weeks where I isolated myself. And sometimes I went too far
Yeah.
and it
I
became
was
a
going to
little
say
too much.
probably
Yeah.
you did. Yeah.
Yeah, too much. But I would come back to, and I had really supportive friends and a really supportive brother, a biological brother, and brothers in my life that met me with non-judgment and compassion, even though they understood and knew what I had done. And
Did
that was deeply healing.
Yeah. Did you share any of this with your parents?
Yes. Yeah. And
And
again,
how
at
was
that,
that?
at that time I did. And at that time, look, it was met very differently from my father and very differently from my mother. And I
I'm
started to
sure.
understand
How
in different
so?
ways.
Can you share?
Yeah. I mean, in short, my father was like, okay, it's not a big deal. Say sorry, move on, don't do it again.
Good. Yeah, exactly.
It was very different. And my mother met me with compassion, but probably a little too much compassion and leeway, if that makes
Yeah.
sense,
Got it.
without the, no, I don't want to say discipline because I'm a 30-year-old man, but without the grounded perspective. But
Yeah.
a lot of all of those parental dynamics that I had grown up with started to really present themselves and unravel as I explored this in a deeper way. And I could see those dynamics in layers deeper than I had seen them before and felt them before.
What were the maybe top 3 beliefs that you had to challenge and change in order to step into the version of yourself, of who you are now?
Yeah, one of them would have been, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of actually being cared for. I'm not worthy of.
It's amazing how that's like that's the one. That's always the one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think for everyone, I think for everyone, it's our self-worth, sense of self-worth, self-esteem, self-value that we place on ourselves, and what that internal dialogue is around that, and the feeling state around that. I just didn't deserve goodness in my life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, another one would have been I can't experience depth of freedom in committed union, in relationship, right? Mm-hmm. In monogamy, in whatever terms you want to put around it. That freedom is elusive in those spaces. Mm-hmm. And that was a tough one. Both those two really were very, very tough to break. Very tough to break.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Did you know that workplace stress is now one of the top causes of declining mental health? It's so sad. With 61% of the global workforce experiencing higher than normal levels of stress. It makes sense. There's a lot of pressure at work. There's a lot of people there's a lot of relationships to navigate. And honestly, to battle stress, like most of us can't not work, but we can start small with focusing on habits that maintain and cultivate a greater sense of well-being. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/onlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/onlove. How were you able to redefine or reframe what freedom feels like to you or means to you so that you could actually be in a relationship?
Because there's great power and empowerment in being clear, so in clarity of the choices that we make. And if I commit, paradoxically, there's great freedom in commitment. Because now I'm not distracted by so much. Like if I'm genuinely committed to whatever that thing is, right?
Yes.
Whether it's fatherhood, whether it's my business, whether it's a partner, and I'm truly committed to that. And every day I wake up and I just get honest with myself. Like being honest, that probably, I gave you 2 beliefs, I'll give you one more, but this is tied to this. The honesty piece. Mm-hmm. I truly believed me being honest with my needs or my desires or my thoughts, right, unless they were presented in an aggressive way and a very opinionated and positioned in an abrasive, better than way, mm-hmm. I wasn't welcome. My honesty and my truth was not welcome in the world. It would be judged, it would be ridiculed, it would be humiliated, it would be rejected. And I had to get over that. That was very egocentric, but again, it was from a protective place. Right. And so how I would compensate for that would be to be aggressive and to be forceful with my beliefs or my thoughts in the world. Mm. And so if I go back to the question around the freedom and commitment, if you like, I started to realize that when I removed all the opportunities that were all fantasy based and I was able to be in presence, clarity and presence, and constant choosing of whatever it is that's in front of me, whatever it is that I am desiring, because there's nothing wrong with desire, it's just how it's presented in the world.
Sure.
I actually found great freedom in that. I found, the freedom came in the form of reprieve. It came in the form of a settling. The anxiousness started to go.
Because you were in a prison before, and that's the paradox.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the greatest irony ever.
It's such an irony and such a paradox. I was in such a prison. And the thing is, nothing would satiate that.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how many women I was with. It didn't matter how many adventures I had. It didn't matter how many people I beat in competition. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
I needed more. Because I wasn't enough. Back to the original self-worth.
Exactly.
I'm not enough, so nothing else is going to be enough.
Yes.
Ever.
Ever.
Ever. No matter how hard you try, how hard I tried, how hard we try. Just look at the world now. Look at it 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago. You'll see characters, you'll see stories that are the archetypes of stories that present the same thing. Like the tyrannical king
Yes,
is an example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all metaphorically true.
The manipulative individual.
Yeah.
I feel this, it's all about, for me, disempowerment, low self-worth. But so much of it's we don't know that because stacked on top of that are the masks that we wear, but the attempt of these stories we tell ourselves where we are good enough if we do these things that we actually forget the original wound, but the original wound is still there. It still permeates our existence, hence it drives those compensatory behaviors. This is what, I spoke to you about this earlier, but this is what my wife goes deeply into the 5 safety strategies that we utilize as humans from a very young age to adults in our adult intimate relationships that play out consistently. And if we don't have deeper intimate contact with these parts of ourselves, which I was lacking that, like I only wanted to polarize what felt good. Mm-hmm. Because again, like the pain-pleasure paradox, right? Like there's so much pain, psychological, emotional, relational pain living in me unconsciously and consciously that I had to replace that with pleasure. And if we don't touch the pain, again, the paradox, like we'll never actually move through it so that the relationship to it changes as such that we can actually be in greater harmony with ourselves.
Yeah, and I want to get to that in a moment, but there's just not speaking of paradox, I think there's another interesting thing is that when we are in so much pain and our self-worth is so low and we are consumed with our shame, like to the point where it leads us down a road where we're contemplating taking our lives. Like there's also a really intense involvement that happens, self-obsession that happens. How were you able to overcome the constant thinking about yourself?
With great difficulty. And like to be completely transparent and honest, like that still occurs in my life now. And I'll give you an example, right? Meaning, so I say recently, it feels recent for me. About 3 years ago, became a father.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it new experiences, new events, they interact differently with our psyche and our nervous systems. And it brought up a lot of old stuff that I thought I had, I wouldn't say arrogantly, but maybe a little bit arrogantly thought, I've dealt with this, I'm good here. Brings up more stuff. And so now, remember the thing about freedom for me, and so many humans experience this, men, or at least the masculine energetic that lives within us that represents freedom, if you like, right? Mm-hmm. So many people experience this push-pull with freedom.
Yeah.
And having a child, of course, my perceptions go back to, I'm not free. Now, I'm not doing the same things that I did years ago.
Sure.
And I want to say, I'm beyond that. However, the sense of self-absorption, I need to make sure I train today. I need to make sure that this happens for me today. I need to make sure that I can rest. I can see myself.
Yeah.
I'm in survival mode. I'm in self-protective mode because I feel that my freedom is taken from me.
Yes.
And so there's a reorientation. I have to come back to center. And the tools and the practices that I have these days compared to many years ago, not only are they stronger and more ingrained within me, and my self-awareness is better as well. I think we all, if we're committed to growth, we all build that over time. But back then, the self-absorption was so strong. I had to, at least I felt I had to take radical action. I had to change a lot of habits that were so ingrained within me. And part of it was totally flipping my routines around, attempting to be more adaptable, robust, and resilient.
Can you give an example of what you mean by flipping your routines?
Yeah. So if I was very diligent in even, this may sound strange, but even if I'm going to my local grocery store, I would take a different way.
Okay. So
something really simple as that. My training routine, which was a very big part of my life, And physical movement helps keep me very grounded as well, especially during times of turmoil or distress, right?
Yes.
Back then, I trained, I still do, but at a great intensity. That intensity represented something for me. It represented my ability to perform.
Yeah.
It wasn't just validation from others, but it was validation from internally. But I saw my compulsion towards that as something that wasn't serving me in a healthy way. So I changed that. That was very hard for me. So I would go for long walks, slow walks, right? Total opposite of training at great intensity for 1 to 2 hours.
Yes.
Right? That as an example, that was tough, because that's part of my daily routine. I went on what I called then a no feminine diet, meaning no pornography, no masturbation, no DMs in social media. If I'm looking at women and I'm feeling an attraction, not judging. Initially, it would be I'd judge the attraction. Right?
Yeah.
Because I went the opposite. I went extremes. I would judge the attraction and I would judge myself for it. But to be able to look at a woman and look at a relational dynamic and not just see, is there physical intimacy present here, but look beyond just that. Like, what are the other layers of this human? What are the other layers of this relationship? But even then, for a long period of time, and I did this multiple times throughout, I've done this multiple times throughout the years, is really going within my own space. So again, another paradox, right? Like, how do I deal with that self-absorption? Is by actually being more self-absorbed, but in a healthier way. Not actually using people and relationships and situations as a means to an end, but rather looking at them as what's their intrinsic value and what is my relationship to how I'm seeing them. So that was a big part of my reframing of that, and actually not just making it about me. The other thing was, it took a while, it took about 1 or 2 years, but once I was able to get out of that deep survival space, was where can I give? I don't want to say more altruistically, because that's a very complicated, complex notion, but where can I give and lead with giving and not need anything in return? If I do need something in return, how can I be in relationship with that in a different way?
Yeah, serve
being more
it.
aware. Yeah, being more aware. Absolutely. And that was a big part of changing some of those habits and moving away from being so self-absorbed. Now, one more thing I'd say, which is probably the biggest one, was I was deep in somatic work and nervous system work and inner child work, and really reframing, beyond reframing, but reprogramming and reorienting my interior self to know that in moments where my survival instinct comes up and I want to be selfish and self-absorbed, that I'm actually safe.
So when that comes up, what is, just to make it really crystal clear to the audience, like if something comes up where your survival, whatever instinct comes up or fear comes up for you, what is an example of nervous system work to cope with that fear? This episode is sponsored by O Positive. O Positive is a women's health company. They offer a range of symptom-targeting supplements that support women at every stage of life, from her first period to well beyond her last. They also have a best-selling women's health product called Uro. Uro is a probiotic blend specifically formulated to support vaginal health, to really balance vaginal flora and healthy vaginal pH. We know that that's really important because many factors like sex, clothing, working out, hormones, periods, all of it can affect everything down there. So ladies, you know what I'm talking about. So take proactive care of your health and head to opositive.com/JOL or enter JOL at checkout for 25% off your first purchase. That's opositiv.com/JOL for 25% off.
Very simple. So one example is hand on belly, on skin, hand on chest.
Yes.
So we're making contact with the frontal plane of our body.
Yeah.
And just that contact on that nurturance canal with a deliberate breath, let's
Like
just
yoga.
say, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out,
Yeah.
and slow down, because in those moments, for most of us, at least for me,
Oh, everything speeds up.
everything speeds up.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. So, and this is the work that I do with people, is some of the foundational work is just slow life down for a moment, because in the slow, you'll actually feel and see and sense that what you perceive to be happening is an autonomic response.
Yes.
And that isn't actually happening. So just doing that, and maybe even laying down if I have the environment to do so, and relaxing and softening and moving into parasympathetic, and doing that for as long as I need to, that then gives me an opportunity to communicate with the parts of me that are really activated, whether they're this is more IFS and inner child work, where there's protective parts that are really activated, to be in deeper communion and relationship with them, not to quieten them down or push them away, but to actually let them speak, but in a safe way, not let them act through reactive behavior. And that was a big unwinding for me. And I mean, again, like I'm not enlightened. I'm still in that place. I got frustrated with my baby girl this morning. I didn't express it today. I didn't express it to her, but I felt the frustration within me. So I closed my eyes briefly. I breathed. This was like 20, 30 seconds. And I connected back to her and her need. And I reminded myself, I know this may sound really silly, but I reminded myself that she's a toddler and that my codependent self needn't be dictated to by her experience, that she's doing exactly what she's meant to be doing.
Yes.
And I don't need to see that as a threat, because my nervous system sometimes sees that as a threat. I see that as it's the old relic of, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not doing it right. If she's crying, that's my fault. I'm doing something wrong. I'm a piece of shit. And then I get
and
worked
so
up about
the switch is, because the default is me. The default is something's wrong with me. That's part of the self-absorption.
Yeah.
And that's the paradox of low self-worth. And that's not a judgment. I've been there too. But like, something's wrong with me, as opposed to being attuned to the other person. And I see this so much in couples is...
Same.
Yeah. And it's, I remember... it's like, look, I often reference my ex-husband just because that was like the relationship that brought me here. And this is not to take any of the responsibility away from me. But one of the things that was just incredibly frustrating was he could never apologize, because he just went into his own shame spiral.
Yeah.
So no matter what, everything always became about him. And it made me, every time he did that, it made me feel more and more abandoned by him, because it's not about you. And I see that all the time. And I've been guilty of that, not particularly in that relationship, but in life. When we have that shame, we have to be so incredibly aware of the tendency. I don't believe it's narcissism, but it's self-absorption, to make it all about us. And so what you're saying here about closing your eyes, breathing, and just tuning into your daughter's nervous system and her, and not making it about you, is so important, because we have to do that with our partners.
We do. And that attunement that you're speaking to, I experienced that in my relationship with my wife, where she'll do something, say something, and I perceive it or interpret it as a threat to me, and I immediately become defensive.
Yes.
I immediately make it about me, as opposed to getting curious. And the only way we can get curious and attune is by regulating our own nervous system. So we need to be disciplined around that, sure, but we need to be compassionate with the parts of us that are rising very quickly to the surface of protection.
Yes.
And when we can be more attuned with ourselves, we can actually attune more to others. And what you spoke to around your ex-husband being in that shame spiral, I just want to say these words, like, welcome to the world of man. So many men are like that.
Yes.
So many men are like, I'm not saying women aren't, of course, but so it's prevalent in men, because we're not really, there's a few, not to go down that rabbit hole, but we're not really taught to be with ourselves. I don't think most of us as humans are not really taught to be with ourselves in healthy ways. And to be in deeper communion and contact with our emotions.
Yes.
And our sense of self. And so what do we do is what you're speaking to, like, we become self-absorbed and we project outwards.
Yes.
And then when we when we don't take responsibility, which I have been so guilty of this, we don't take responsibility for what is coming from us because we're in so much shame. We create so much distance, so much isolation in relationship, and the other person is not seen, they're not heard, they're not understood, they're not appreciated.
All one is obsessing about is how they feel like they're a failure.
And all we have to actually do, I share another honest example with you from like 2 days ago. My wife shared something really vulnerable with me, and because I was unconsciously holding some resentment towards her, my response was, oh yeah, that affects me too. That's literally what I said. And I wasn't angry about it. I said,
it's the tit for tat.
Yep,
it was keeping score.
And I, as I was saying it, I knew it wasn't the quote unquote right thing to say. But I said it anyway because I hadn't cleaned up my own resentments and the energy that I had within me. And her response, forget about what she said, her whole body just depressed. Mm-hmm. So sad. Now, we repaired that within the hour because we were actually going for a walk. So we repaired that. It was good that we were going for a walk. And we had a redo, and I was able to really see her vantage point and feel it. And part of it, and I'm not making any excuses here, I just want to be transparent, I'm a little scared of what she's, sort of moving through because it's just a lot of unknown. So I'm scared for her, I'm scared for me. And one of my patterns, and again, I think many men can relate to this, is I use aggression as a means of control. Because I want to control my environment. I'm not controlling her. I just want to control. I don't like the feeling of fear and unknown and sadness within me. So I'll be angry because that gives me more the sense of control. I've got this.
When you met your wife, how did you have this conversation about your past? And because I can't imagine that was an easy thing for her to hear. And so how did you work through that so that there could be trust?
By being very extremely 100% transparent, sharing everything with her. And for many years, I was not only ashamed, but also fearful that I would never really find anyone because I couldn't hide what my past was. I didn't want to. And so to keep myself accountable, I started sharing my story. And then B, I thought I would be, judged and so forth. And it wasn't until I came to a place within myself that I accepted the possible reality that I may not be in a relationship, and I had to be okay with that because of my past. These are all my own stories, right?
Yeah.
So it was just the moment we were introduced by mutual friends and we started to get to know each other, and there was an intention of, hey, maybe we're building a relationship here, straight in, immediately, hey, I've got some truth to share with you about my past. This is who I am. This is what I'm working through. This is what I understand about myself. This is the work that I've done. I totally understand if that is not accessible to you. I just want to be really honest with you. And she met that with compassion and non-judgment in a really beautiful way. That wasn't a quote unquote wound for her. And we have immense trust in that area of our lives since we first met, more than 7 years ago.
This episode is sponsored by Indeed. If you are someone who needs to hire, if you own a business, if you're running a business, Indeed is truly all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites because Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and really hire very, very fast. I mean, how fast? In the minute. I've been talking to you. 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. And there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results. It's genius. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/JOL. Just go to Indeed.com/JOL right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/JOL. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, all you need is Indeed. It could have, I think what would have been a disaster if it was a wound for her and maybe if she was jealous or whatever it is. And then that really could have been a very difficult.
Of course.
difficult journey for the two of
I
you.
don't think we would have worked from that perspective.
No.
That has not been we've had other challenges. That is not a challenge in our relationship, thankfully,
Yes.
Yeah. But we definitely have other challenges.
Yeah, well, we all
we're
have
working through.
Yeah. So I guess to wrap this up, I wanted to, what is two things? What's a message that you would give to any man who is struggling, even if it's just on a smaller scale or even a larger scale in the way that you have struggled? And what would you tell women or anyone who is dating a man who is in the thick of this and unhealed? Like, what are some of the things that she has to protect herself, right? So like, what are some of the things that she has to, I'm not talking about the person who's doing the work. I'm talking about being in the relationship with the person who is not in any way. What's your suggestion to her?
I'll explore and respond to the second question first. So, and great distinction, by the way, between the man that is doing his inner work and really committed to that and it's clear, and the person that's not. I would say this, and then I'll build on it. You cannot fall in love or be in connection to his potential. Yes. You have to be in connection to what actually is.
Yes.
And if you're willing to do your inner work and you're willing to be with this man because you can experience and feel and absorb the other qualities that he holds as a human in relationship that you really value, yet this one here, he's not budging and he's unwilling and or unable and or just doesn't want to, whatever it is, you have to make a decision that's self-honoring. And in fact, I would say that what's probably happening more than likely in this scenario is that whatever your wounds are around your own self-worth and around what you're bringing into your world and what relational patterns you're attempting to break, because that's why we come into intimate adult union, to either reinforce patterns that are healthy or to move beyond patterns that no longer serve us. Yeah. If you're not making a decision that's self-honoring, all you are doing is perpetuating a pattern that is harmful to you, an emotional, relational, psychological pattern that's harmful to you. And so that's a beautiful opportunity to say, I love you, and love isn't enough.
Yes, I think that's wonderful. Sorry, and I just got excited here because I want But what I was going to add was also what I think by you sharing this, I think you're going to be helping so many people. And one of the ways you're going to be helping maybe the woman who's been in a relationship with the man who was your former self, is to make her realize that it's not about her. It's not that you're not good enough, that he's out there doing that.
Correct.
It is 100% between him and him. Yeah, you're in it, so you're involved. But don't internalize it as, well, I'm not good enough to be chosen, because that is not what this is about.
It's not
at all.
It's not. I completely agree with that. And from my own personal experience and working with so many people in this arena and outside of it as well, it is purely a reactive pattern that lives within that person that's taking that action.
Yes.
You can't. The only thing I think anyone that is on the other end of that needs to internalize is, why am I still staying? And why am I not self-honoring? I'm not saying you have to leave, because you don't. Like my partner and I back then, we stayed together for a number of months attempting to make it work. Mm-hmm. Right. And attempting to go in. God bless her courage and her ability to and it wasn't a reflection on her. She was an amazing partner. She's not perfect, sure. And she had her stuff, but she was an amazing human to me. She did not do anything to warrant that. And even if she did, it still doesn't warrant that action.
No, never. It's not your fault, and it's not because of you. Yeah.
100% no. And your work, if you're thinking that repeatedly, your work is to not think that. Your inner work is to move away from that thought pattern that transmutes itself into your body and has you acting like that in the world.
Yes, 100%. And what would be your message to men who are struggling with porn, even if it's just porn addiction?
Sure. So shame lives in the shadows, and it thrives in isolation. Being witnessed is one of the greatest gifts that we can give our own journey, our own life's path, and each other. I truly believe one of the ways that we've evolved as humans, beyond just maybe discovering psychedelics and fire and cooking meat and eating meat and whatever the things are that have evolved us, right? Mm-hmm. One of them is the way that we've chosen to socially interact and to witness each other and to see each other in uncomfortable situations and still love and care about each other, the belongingness, right? Like I'm going down deep, just side note here, I've gone down such deep rabbit holes of belongingness. I think, so I've got if I may just say this, I've got a book coming out with Hay House February 3rd, 2026.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, super excited. And the next book, I'm pretty certain I'm going to write it on belongingness, which is going to build on this first book. And it's such a big pain point in so many of us. Men just fester in their isolation and shame. And so what I would say to men is find other healthy men to see you, to challenge you, but to also hold you in your pain, because you can't hold it by yourself. It's how you carry those emotional and psychological and relational loads that break you, that again, cause most men to experience so much pain that they need pleasure. And so the pleasure can look like, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and I don't care who I hurt along the way. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to be angry at everyone. I'm going to project on everyone else. I'm going to control my environment. All of that hurt that goes out is because we're not heard, felt, seen by others. So you have to be surrounded by people, particularly men, in this case, men and men, that actually can hold your pain with you. So important.
Yeah, I think that's the power of men's groups. It's really, really massive.
Yeah.
Stefanos, where can people find you?
Thank you. StefanosSifandos.com and on social media at Stefanos Sifandos.
And you mentioned that your wife also does a retreat in October?
Yes, every year. It is a women's retreat. I'm part of that as well, but it's a super transformative journey arc of women coming in and leaving very, very different people. And the emotional release work, the safety that's created in these containers is so beautiful. My wife's been doing it for well over a decade now. I come in and support her in one of the portions in relating to the masculine and so forth. And I don't want to give away too much, but I'll give you URLs for that. And one more URL for me if you ever want to work with me in a one-on-one capacity, coachwithsteph.com as well.
Yeah, and we'll have that all linked out in the show notes. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And thank you for sharing your story. I think it's a very, very, very important one, especially as we just, in the pop psychology zeitgeist, throwing around all these terms. And so having some insight and just being an example of what it is to bravely look in the mirror and to face yourself and to change. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it wouldn't have happened without amazing people along the way that
have to have help.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. I don't think I'd be here today physically or mentally if it wasn't for some very amazing humans.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Stefanos.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Jillian On Love is a QCODE production, executive produced by David Henning and Steve Wilson, produced and edited by Travis Howe, music by Will Tendy.